Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/TalesFromSecurity and our first story for today. When alarm company scripts are a bit too ingrained. Me, hello, government security, how can I help you? Alarm company operator, ACO. Hello, I'd like to report a fire at fire hall number 5 at address, fire department has been dispatched. Me, trying not to giggle, is that so? ACO, yes, fire has been dispatched, they're en route. Me, to fire hall number 5. ACO, yes, they're en route to fire hall. Wait a minute, oh dear. Me, I'm sure whatever's happened, the folks on site are the best folks to handle it. ACO, long sigh. That's probably true. Me, I'll call them and ask what's going on. I call the captain for that hall and explain the call. He bursts out laughing. Nah, we're just crappy cooks. Well, that's a pretty incendiary story. And before you start the next one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much for the likes and comments. Truck catches fire. My boss says, piss on it. This happened 30 years ago, but I'll remember it as long as I live. With that, let me set the stage and introduce the cast. I had just finished high school that year and didn't really have a plan for my immediate future. At the same time, a very well-known paper mill in my country had a crisis as most of their staff went on a long-term strike over a wage dispute. Now back then, companies were allowed to hire temps to fill the positions as best they could until the situation was resolved. I saw an ad from them in the local newspaper and of course applied. They were desperate for staff, so there was no back and forth or interview or anything. Simply, what skills do you have? This is what we pay. You're hired. The factory was in another town a few hours away, so I got on the bus and off I went. I won't bore you with the details, but what's important is that I got assigned as a weighbridge operator, which meant I reported to the head of security. My job was to weigh trucks coming in with loads of lumber, then weigh them again when they left empty so that the paper mill had a record. We worked 12-hour shifts. I was on the night shift. Got 3 meals a day and free accommodations in the company's employee quarters. It was awesome. Now, let me introduce my boss, the head of security. He was about 55 years old or so. We'll call him Fred. He was a rather big man with a very stern expression, smoked like a chimney, and spoke in a voice that would make drill sergeants weep with envy. He was also the funniest guy I ever met. Fred had been with the company so long he just didn't give a flip, and he had a very mischievous personality, which he promptly revealed once we had contact a few times. We became fast friends. Perhaps I should explain why we clicked. I was just getting off shift one morning when Fred came to the bridge, stood in the door, and proceeded to use some very colorful language while brandishing a weight receipt and telling me how stupid I was for doing it wrong. He even compared my face to a vagina at some point. I was all of 17, going on 18, and I'd never heard half the words he used. He sounded angry, but his eyes didn't look angry, so I figured he was trolling. So I started laughing and told him to give me the receipt. I checked my work, called him over, and pointed out to him that it was he that was the idiot and asked him if he had failed basic math in school. Then I finished by telling him that while my face might look like a vagina, at least my head was not full of crap like some heads of security around the place. He stormed out in mock anger, taught me a few new swear words while winking, and left. My coworkers, all temps, were in shock because they never picked up on the trolling and thought I was going to get fired and that Fred was a horrible person. I figured it's probably better to let them fear the boss than think him a clown, so I just kept quiet. The very next night, Fred walked into my office around midnight. Now, being a weighbridge operator on night shift meant you had a rush hour around 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. when trucks came in, and again from about 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. when they were leaving. A few trucks would come in at other times, but most of the traffic was around the times mentioned. The quiet times were used to process receipts on the computer system, which was usually done by 12 a.m. So Fred comes over and tells me to take a ride with him. My coworkers try to look invisible and give me looks of pity, but I just shrugged and said, okay. As soon as we get in the truck, Fred starts laughing and tells me I'm one of the few people who didn't crap their pants when he went off on them. It turns out that due to Fred's resting face looking like he wanted to kill you, his size, and his position as head of security, people expected him to be a real mean SOB, so he played the role given to him. Then he told me we're going to go harvest some pumpkins. Yes, I kid you not, pumpkins. The factory had a few acres of open land, and some people took it upon themselves to just farm stuff there. Fred took it upon himself to harvest the crops from time to time, so we went and got a truckload of pumpkins for Fred. Fast forward a month or so later, and by this time I'd gone on a few night drives with Fred, just normal patrol stuff because he liked the company. We would swear at each other and when he came to the bridge or spoke on the phone, and by this time my coworkers had picked up on the rather unusual friendship. We would phone prank each other a few times just for laughs. Important detail. I don't know, Fred was just Fred, and I thought he was funny. Around 3 a.m., a lumber truck approaches the bridge, and we immediately see the guy is trouble because he's not braking fast enough. There was a bit of a downward slope as you approached. He was filled with lumber. It was going to be bad. So we go into emergency mode and open the gate so the driver could go straight through and hopefully slow down enough not to cause any major damage. The driver, meantime, is frantically trying to brake, and I guess something happened because the next minute we see sparks. Lots of sparks. The truck slows down and stops just inside the gate. And oh boy, the wheels are on fire. The company has their own internal fire department. They report to Fred, just like me. So I get on the phone and call him. Me, Fred, we have an emergency. What do you want, F-face? Me, now's not the time for jokes. We have a lumber truck on fire. Yeah, pull the other one. Me, now panicking a bit because my boss thinks I'm pulling a joke. Fred, I need a fire truck here right now, you stupid effing idiot. There's a truck on effing fire. The wheels are burning. Fred, the wheels? Just pee on it or something. Me, very pissed off. Fred, here's what's gonna happen. I've officially reported an emergency to you, but you're too much of a dick to know when playtime is over, so I'm gonna hang up now and just let the effing truck burn to the ground so you can then explain to your boss why it happened. So I hung up the phone and went back outside to help clear the area. Now I should note that the call only lasted maybe 30 seconds or so. About 2 minutes after the call, the fire truck mercifully shows up and starts spraying chemicals. I don't know what they use. It's like a white powder if I remember correctly. Fred's truck is right behind them. He parks and walks over to me and with a sheepish grin on his face, slaps the back of my head, not hard, and says, "Huh, so you weren't kidding." No, Fred, I was not kidding. The truck was fine though. Turned out that the brakes had started failing and then locked, which is why the sparks started flying. The rear tires caught fire from the heat of the friction caused by the locked brakes. The fire guys quickly contained it, and the truck only had to get some tires and a bit of wiring replaced. All in all, it probably looked a lot scarier than it really was, but I was young and knew nothing of trucks. I suspect Fred was experienced enough to realize the situation and was just messing with me. If so, he got me good. Reserved parking. You cannot park here. I'm working a craft show at a venue that also has a restaurant, and that restaurant has 8 reserved spots for customers. Whenever we work this venue, we have to direct traffic because the full parking lot area isn't painted due to some regulations, as it's also a cruise ship dock. So one of us is always guarding the reserved spots with their life, telling literally every single person that those spots are reserved. There usually isn't much of an argument, but today, oh my. A guy rolls in, almost hitting me while waving at me, acknowledging that I am in fact standing there. He reluctantly rolled down his window after a few seconds of awkward eye contact. Me. I'm sorry, these spaces are reserved for the restaurant. All other parking is down there through that gate. Him. Nah, I'm parking here. Me. If you park here, you'll be towed. It's for restaurant customers only. Him. Well, I don't see a sign. Me. I'm your sign. You have to move. Him. I'm not moving. I'm not parking all the way down there and walking through this parking lot to get in. It's freezing out. Me. Tell me about it. I've been out here for 3 hours so far telling people they can't park here and directing traffic. Him. Well, that's your job and that's why you're here. Me. Exactly. And since you're able to acknowledge that it's my job to tell you to move, can you please move your car? At this point, I think his brain broke for a minute because he didn't have anything to say. He just turned the car on and moved. On his way back through the doors, he muttered, "Parking Nazi dickhead," loud enough for me to hear. This is the first game of mental chess that I've won against one of these pricks, so please let's all enjoy this together. Before I submit, yes, there are signs stating that this is restaurant parking only, but because it's winter, they're in storage because they blow away, get knocked over by plows, etc. There's nowhere to bolt a sign to. Big thanks to everyone who subscribes to the channel and put likes and comments below the video, and I'll see you soon.